Ali and Hannah, could we talk first about a typical day when you have a commercial job and the tight turnaround?
We will get a casting brief in. Although actually we generally work on a brief like for up to 2 weeks before the job actually happens, negotiating backwards and forwards with the agency, generally trying to increase fees, find the best for the actors, find the best way of using their budget productively. So that's like a lot of background. And then when we get confirmation, then it will hit quite fast.
They say it's going to hit and then it's a week before you get it.
Yeah, and then you'll get it and you really have
a day to do it in.
So we'll brief out the job on Spotlight and to whichever agents that we need to brief it out in. We'll get suggestions back. I think we're going to talk about that later, but thousands of suggestions. We'll go back through our previous catalogue of casting, make lists, check availabilities, and we genuinely try and give every actor, because we realise how much pressure there is on you with self-tapes, the 48 hours at least. And we quite often work crazy hours in order to do that. So it's not unusual for us to be sitting up till 2-3 in the morning making lists so that we can get those
5
self-tape.
in the morning this week,
darling. So you can get the self-tape instructions out. So, the $1 million question is, why is it such a quick turnaround? I think there is more pressure with clients and their budgets. They're not necessarily as ready to spend money as they used to be.
Yeah.
I think there's more content being produced and not necessarily more people to work on it.
Creative discussions before that even comes to us, and sometimes there's disagreements further down the chain and they have to iron all that out, and we're kind of the last cog in this creative process. And so often we've got to kind of sort of make up that time somehow in some way.
Please don't think that we just sit on a casting brief and don't wait until the last 11th hour to send out to actors. We genuinely don't.
You want it out there.
We want it out there. We're pressing for confirmation.
What's the shortest turnaround you've had?
Do you know, the shortest turnaround usually happens because there's been some kind of hiccup.
Yeah.
So either an actor hasn't submitted self-tape, so I'm suddenly left with a big gap where I need to send in 15 tapes and I've got 5, genuinely. So then I'm asking people to turn around things quickly.
Confirmed and then unconfirmed because of some disastrous reason.
Yeah.
And then you are in the 11th hour trying to replace that
recast them.
Yeah.
And it is commercial. So, the client has the end say and they can suddenly turn around on everybody's decision, directors, our decision, everybody's.
Yeah.
Because they don't like the colour of someone's hair.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it can be as ridiculous as that. Yeah.
Max, from your point of view now as a director, can you explain the production chain? So starting with at the ad agency through to producer and then the talent.
Okay. So the script comes in, like the whole thing through the pitch process.
Yeah.
Okay. So the script, the agency come up with their script and they decide on 3 production companies who will bid it. Each one of those productions, it really comes down to the director. So Max from Rogue, so-and-so from Academy, so-and-so from Blink or whatever. And 3 directors from 3 production companies will bid the job. And that process usually takes about a week, during which time you sort of get a sense who's going to win it. And your casting director is probably talking with the agency producer, trying to work out, trying to nudge the fees up a bit. And people are saying, at this point, they're saying, well, could you do that with less extras? In which case you could probably get a bit more for the fees. And we're looking at it and we're saying, well, this role is really quite a complex role. If you go in with that fee, you're not going to get someone really that good. So how could we redistribute the casting casting budget a bit in order to make that work? So there's a little bit of that while we're pitching. In the end, the 3 pitches go off to the decision to be made. Usually agency recommends someone. They often tell you that you're the recommend, whether you are or not, you haven't got a clue. They'll often tell you you're the recommend and then you don't get the job. So we take all that with a pinch of salt. Just like everything. We often, just like you guys, we often, put our heart and soul into something and then we just lose and there's no explanation of it. And so that the empathy of that always makes me really want to kind of look after the actors through this process, which I think must be pretty brutal. So we win the job. Now, let's say, so the job I've just shot over the weekend, we cast the leading man and the leading woman in the UK. They send out, I ask if and my casting director, who I say mine, I don't own her, but she does my jobs, is called Sally McCleary, who's in the room somewhere here. And she is absolutely fantastic, and I do all my work with her. She was unavailable, so I was working with a new casting director so I said, oh, just get me headshots. So then I could just look at headshots of everyone that was coming in. So at least I could and the headshots were all like really modelly. And I don't really like good looking people. Present company selfies, you know. I think they have too easy a time generally. So I like shooting kind of slightly odd looking people. So then I culled a load on the headshots, and then we got in Switzerland they don't do a recall. Right? In Switzerland, they don't recall. Right. So they just take the best tape, and that's totally mental. So I just said, we must recall. But I was there already, so we did a remote recall. We did 5 for the man and 5 for the woman. There was a lot of back and forth. It's one of those markets where you can't quite tell whether people are being, like here. Diversity is like, I think we're in a really good place, and in as much as no one needs to explain oneself, we're just going to take the best person for the role, and we're going to make sure that the patchwork of humans across the piece is representative of our country, and that's all good. Sometimes out there you have to do a little bit more, like you'll start to see that you'll end up with just all white people if you're not careful, but you can bring that back and just force people to argue that on it and just not back down. So that's achievable. And yeah, then so self tapes, recalls which were remote, and then we take 3 usually to the client. We get an agency recommend, and I would recommend someone. The agency were on side with me. In this case, the client went with the second, who was good as well. You can't go presenting people who you wouldn't want to shoot with, because the client may well just go a different route. Yeah. But there are so many factors that come into getting or not getting a job from the actor's point of view. It used to be that you would say, you'd do your recall, you'd go onto the call, or you'd go in the room and you go, the agency and I agree, this is the lead. Yeah. And they would, or they might say, can they do this? Can they do that? Or wind the tape forward, show them this person can smile or can do differently. And 99 times out of 100, they just sign it off. Now they want to see 3 or 4 options. Yeah. They're interested in who your recommend is, but they're going to take those 3 or 4 options away and probably show them to their partner. And some people at home.
Their hairdresser.
And
Power play sometimes, I think. Like sometimes a decision will come in from the client at the 11th hour, and there's no real reason. Like, it's just that they've shown their authority and overridden everybody, and we all have to start again. Yeah. And, that can sometimes come into play. Not always, but, I've had a few of those.
The hardest part of the job for me is waiting. I absolutely hate it. And I guess it's the same for you lot, right? Right. So like I do a pitch, I write a pitch, and everyone says, oh yeah, we love it, Max. And you're like, oh, am I going to get some changes? And they're like, oh yeah, they give you changes. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I got changes. I think I'm going to win it. And it's great. And then I'm sure it's the same with you. Oh, they've asked you to tape again. And it's like, oh yes. And they've asked, would I cut my hair if I got the role? That must mean something. Right. And then,
yeah.
And then all control is gone. And now you wait and you think, well, what's the time now? Right, it's 3:00. Well, they must be in the meeting by now. Why haven't they called me? Yeah. And of course, everyone has just got a million other things to do, and a lot of different roles. But all of these agency producers ultimately who sign off the cast, all of them have got 2-3 jobs running. Yeah. And all of them are trying to, and then the client, who's the only person who can sign the class, you're waiting to get a meeting with him. So if there was one bit of advice around that, I am really trying to sort of manage my mental health. It's true around waiting. I'm really trying to just carve out that time and go, look, there's nothing you can do. Either this is going to land or it won't. But that anxiety for all of us while we wait for a pitch, any kind of way we can support each other and do better around that is a win, I think.
We want to talk now about in-person auditions, and we've been hearing a lot since COVID that actors have been declining in-person auditions, and they're asking for either Zoom auditions or self-tape. Why do you think this is? Is it logistics, time?
It'll be a mix of a few things. So firstly, everybody wants to be in the room. Like, actors want to meet the casting directors, they want to meet the directors. Everybody wants to be in the room.
I'd have to argue that.
But however, there is a huge amount of things that stops that. Partly, everyone's moved out of London. They can't afford to be here as much as they were before. Most people have day jobs now that they have to work around. And obviously, casting directors, like everybody else, doesn't want to be working at the weekends. So, you know, they can't take a day off of work for a £50 recall to go into the room, because, you know, they're going to lose hundreds, and they just can't afford it because everything is ridiculously expensive now. So it's balancing that understanding of the industry and the industry you're in, and going, okay, no, this isn't my actual job and I need to be there, to, if I do this too often, I'm going to lose my house.
Yeah.
And it's, trying to keep that balance between the two. So obviously, and again, if you've got kids and things like that, then you're juggling childcare and all of the extra things as well. So yes, they want to be in the room, but there's too many things that are going to make sure that they are going to turn around and say, actually, a tape will be easier or a Zoom will be better, because they can't afford to do it otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, from the casting director's point of view and the directors, they've set aside their half day or their full day for their auditions. They've booked the studio, that's all done, and then you could be getting people dropping out on the day.
And you get so many, but you, like, before COVID, you'd book in, let's say you're booking 50 people, and you're booking 52 because there's always going to be two that fall out. Now you're booking 50 people, and then you're booking another 50 people, and then you're booking another 50 people, because none of them want to come to the in-person. And then you're scrabbling around, filling up spaces with people who weren't your first choice.
Yeah.
Or the first choice say, can we take? And there's been so much pushback against tapes, but all of these actors then are asking, can we tape instead? And I'm like, you know, guys, you're all saying you want to be in a studio, and when we get a studio, and when we offer you a casting, you're not available because of all the reasons you've said. And so it's very difficult whenever they say we want an in-person, I always think, ugh, it's going to be messy, and you'll end up casting off the tapes, because everybody I'm going to want to come in won't be able to come in, and the best people will have taped.
So Chris is from the Advertising Association, which promotes responsible advertising. Chris, you have been instrumental in shaping policy. Could you briefly explain the proposed UK legislation surrounding the junk food ban?
My job, I'm Public Affairs Director, so I essentially am a lobbyist, but I hate that term, but it's probably the easiest way to explain what I do. Do a lot of talking to government. And over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been talking to them about this less healthy food advertising restrictions that are coming in. And you may have seen it in the news. It came in on the 1st of October. Essentially, it means that a lot of food advertising that we know and love, you won't see anymore. So you will not see Burger King showing burgers on TV adverts or online at all. And the TV ones that Blue Watershed ban. So the trickle-down impact of that is that the companies themselves obviously are going to be restricting budgets in certain parts. They won't be able to make as many adverts that they want. And the adverts that they can make will be brand-led. So they won't be talking about, if you're Burger King, they won't be talking about the Whopper, because that's a less healthy food, surprise, surprise. So they can't put that in their advert. They can't show that. They can't show somebody eating a Whopper or a family going to Burger King and ordering, but they can show brand-led stuff. So they can still show their logo. They can still talk about their range of burgers, provided they don't say something specific. And so the knock-on impact there is not only may they invest less money in advertising online, in TV and online, but they may also start moving towards things which don't have as many actors in them, particularly if it's a brand-led piece where they can't have people going in, enjoying their food, enjoying their restaurants or hospitality, because obviously this goes beyond just Burger King. It affects a whole range of people. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm only just saying that to make you aware of what the restrictions are. And the reason why, regardless of what your personal opinion is around less healthy food advertising, there's also stuff around potential alcohol advertising restrictions and gambling restrictions. There's all sorts of advertising politicians and the public in many places would like to see restricted more. And we can have a conversation about personal opinions. But from a commercial point of view, the less money that there is going into those particular types of advertising means that if you're a public service broadcaster or a commercial broadcaster or an online news site, for anyone that accepts advertising to fund their commercial activity, and for TV advertising is about 45% on average of their revenue. So it's really important for the journalism and program that we all love. The more restrictions we have on it, the less advertising from those big spenders can go into those channels, and it affects what everything else does, and it affects programming, affects TV shows, affects films. So that's my little pitch. We've been doing a lot of work with Spotlight, CDA, CDG, and others in the industry as well, just to kind of raise awareness about that. We started working with you guys back at the start of the year, whenever the restrictions were quite uncertain. It was always meant to affect those Burger King adverts that I was talking about, but there was a possibility that because of the way the law was written, it would have affected all adverts that Burger King could do, because there was this synonymity test. If you are a company that's kind of synonymous with less healthy food, then maybe you shouldn't be able to advertise at all. That was never the intention of the policy. That was how it was written. So we teamed up with you guys and some of the other trades that I've mentioned as well to put pressure on the government to say you need to clarify, make sure the law comes in as you intended it to, and so it doesn't have this knock-on effect on the commercial side of the sector. And in future, if you're looking to do stuff on alcohol for anything else, we're very happy to have those conversations. I have those conversations a lot, but you need to involve everyone. This isn't just an advertising issue. It has a massive knock-on effect to freelancers and everybody else in the affected sector as well.
Thank you, Spotlight, because really the PMA and the agents knew nothing about this at all until that was raised by Spotlight. And I know you said, oh, just Burger King, but actually the amount that this covers is quite like biscuits, crisps.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, it
All
is
the
a
supermarket
huge,
Christmas
yeah,
commodities,
it's a
you know.
huge amount. And if you think that 60% of casting briefs that are put out on Spotlight are for commercials, and then suddenly you've got a large percentage of that disappearing, hopefully not disappearing, hopefully the creative will come through and we'll find more creative ways of advertising those projects. But it has a massive impact. And like you said, for funding drama and TV, that all that funding for Channel 5 and Channel 4, that comes from commercials.
Okay, so we better jump into self-tapes and have a chat about that, because I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. How do you deal with the amount of tapes you get in?
I always watch all the tapes. I think that's really important. You can be really respectful. What I would say is I don't watch all of the tapes.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think if I had a piece of advice for self-tapes, it's like, just think about how you open. Like, really think about how you open and what those first few seconds are. In my opinion, you don't need to come in with like your idents and your profiles and your fingers. Like, as a director, I just want to be like, oh wow, they look cool. I just want, like, I don't know what that first image you want. I've been seeing recently people who just open their headshot, open their tape just with a really good headshot and their name, and then they just go straight into the performance. Like, we are, often I'll try and get my casting director to boil it down to, 30, 40 tapes per role, but that's still a lot. And I've often got 2 or 3 jobs on at once. So what you need to do in that tape, right, is you need to assume rapport, get the conversation going right off the bat, and really, within the first 10 seconds, within the first 10 seconds, that person, you're like, oh, they're getting recalled. They get all day long, they're getting recalled. And what is it that they did? Might be something funny. It might be something kind of, their kid walked in and they just interacted with them, and like something real. I actually find those tapes where like they've put a kind of funny psych up and like a light, and it's all, I find all those a bit like, just like, I mean, look, well done, fine, whatever. Yeah. But I just want to see your life. I want to see who you are and what's going on in your life, and get some note, a little bit of authenticity, a window into your life. Yeah. And I want to find out more. I want to get you into a recall. So that, I think, is key. Really positive. Be someone I want to spend time in a room with. Be confident, be charming, crack a joke, whatever, as long as it's not an awful joke. But there's something about that idea, if you bumped into, if we bumped into each other at a party, and there's something about how you act, and do that in a self-tape. And that would be my strong advice.